All right, everyone, I'm Alyson Campbell with Estrela Consulting, and I am so happy that you have joined us to learn a little bit more about a flight path for studying aviation. So we have three wonderful co-pilot presenters with us tonight. I'm going to do a brief slide introduction of them, and then we'll introduce them in depth a little bit later. So the Q&A is on, the chat is disabled. So if you do have some questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them there, and we will address them at the end. So again, like I said, I'm Alyson Campbell. I'm a college planning consultant with Estrela. We also have joining us Dr. Stephanie Fussell from Kent State University, and she's the aeronautics program coordinator and an assistant professor. We have Austin Irvine from Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida, and he is an admissions counselor, as well as Nicholas Savely, who is with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and he is at the Prescott, Arizona location, and he's an assistant director of admission. So welcome, everyone. We'll go over our flight plan. I just love a good theme, so I hope you guys don't mind all of my puns and plays on words tonight, but we'll have a pre-flight checklist. So we'll talk about some considerations for students that are thinking about aviation programs. We'll have a takeoff. So we're going to get a little bit more in depth with our three presenters about their particular school and their particular program. We'll talk a little bit about ways that you can maximize your experience while at college. And then also we'll land it with our smooth landing. We'll talk a little bit about outcomes. I have a specific question I want to ask each presenter that is a little bit more unique. And then if we have some time, I've just asked them to each share a quick success story. So maybe you will see yourself in one of those success stories down the road someday. So like I mentioned, just some considerations if you're thinking about aviation or an aviation related major in the future. So we'll talk a little bit about tonight that there are a number of different options. So it's not just becoming a pilot, whether it's personal or commercial. There are a lot of aviation related majors. There's aeronautical engineering. You could do something with perhaps mechanics. You can do air traffic control. There are a ton of options for our students. So again, we'll touch a little bit more on that. But typically we're seeing students that are considering aviation, like they love to fly, they love to travel, but what else beyond that should we probably be looking for in a student? So obviously our students that are stronger in the maths and sciences, obviously like basic algebra, trig, geometry is pretty important as well, just being able to do some of those basic math calculations. Also students that are interested in science, so physics, making sure that you're pushing yourselves with your math and science, physics being one of those. Also, if you have an interest in meteorology, to be sure that you can understand weather patterns and kind of like what goes into like the clouds, the stratosphere, wind patterns, things like that. So that is something if you have interest in, should probably be checking that off if you're interested in aviation. And also considering if you're interested in computers, because being in the aeronautical aviation fields, you're going to need to be knowledgeable about a lot of different types of equipment. And just being familiarized with that type of stuff is going to be very important. So if you have interest in those, and again, if you've always thought, oh, I wanted to be a pilot and I love to travel, or I love doing things with my hands, I always love looking at engines and things like that, this might be something that would be worth considering. Some common prerequisites from an academic standpoint, like I mentioned, definitely being heavy in the math and sciences. If you're not strong in math and science, might be a good way. You might want to ask one of our presenters tonight how you can do that maybe in the last few years of your high school career to really amplify and build up your math and science skills. Maybe there's some remedial classes or baseline classes that students are required to take in college to make sure that they can almost like, again, a prerequisite for being a part of an aviation program. Also, there was a lot of talk about private pilots licenses. So I'm going to ask them a little bit later. This could be common. So some students that really love to fly, they've already had a taste of it. They've gone out on their own, out of their own pocket and achieved their private pilot's license. You know, is this something that you've already done, that you're thinking about doing? Should I do this instead of an aviation degree? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also other considerations, there is a health screening through the FAA, I believe. So making sure that you are going to be equipped to fly an airplane or co-pilot an airplane, things like color blindness, asthma, diabetes. So obviously types of pre-existing medical conditions that might hinder your ability to be in the air. That might be something that could disqualify you or might need to be addressed before moving forward with an aviation type degree. Anybody have anything to add on that? Hopefully I covered that decently enough. All right, awesome. So what flight path is best for me? So again, we mentioned that there are a number of different aviation related programs. Again, with the air traffic controlling, you're not going to be in a plane, you'll be in a tower. If you're someone who's a mechanic, you're on the ground. If you're someone who maybe works for one of the corporate airlines with scheduling or customer service or baggage. So there are different avenues, but in context for becoming a pilot, again, a lot of talk between like, well, why can't I just get a private pilot's license? And you definitely can. And that could be something that is a great way to test the waters or to get like a taste of flying and seeing if that's something you're really passionate about. But I wanted to highlight some pros and cons between the two because our presenters tonight are here to talk about an aviation degree, a 4-year, possibly more degree that will give you a wide array of options and opportunities. So the pros for a private pilot's license is it's less time to finish your schooling, okay? It allows you to fly for fun. You can do personal trips. You can take your friends and family up into an aircraft, and maybe a little bit more accessible. So maybe a local airpad would have some opportunities to take lessons or fly. And again, you could use maybe some of the hours towards pursuing a commercial license down the line. The cons, flying is expensive. And every podcast and webinar that I've listened to is that, I mean, we think it's hard to drive, it's expensive to drive our cars nowadays. Imagine driving or flying an airplane. So these are usually paid out of pocket, the schooling, the rentals, supplies, hangars, the exams that you need to take. So those are all going to be paid out of pocket. And then only typically would expose you to flying or being a pilot. So when you're in an aviation degree, you might have exposure to the mechanical side of things or the air traffic control side of things. So things, I even saw one, it was Pittsburgh Aeronautical Institute, I believe, or Institute of Aeronautics. I might have it mixed up, but they have an interior design for airlines degree or certificate, which I thought was really cool. So some things are just a little bit more off the beaten path, but typically if you're pursuing a private pilot's license, you can fly a plane. Not much else going on aside from that. And then we find that most commercial or industrial pilots are required to have a bachelor's degree. So if you are okay with flying a twin prop plane by yourself or with one other person, that's great. But if you want to work for Delta United or utilize it for travel down the road or make a career out of it, it might not be the best way. It could work towards it, but it's not going to be the end result that you're looking for. So with an aviation degree, obviously it allows you for deep exploration into a number of aviation related fields. So it's going to open and broaden your horizons about what you could do with this type of degree. A bachelor's degree is typically what is required for most commercial airlines. There are abilities to network and job connect. So if you're at a 4-year degree program and they have, you could work for Boeing, you could work for Delta, you could work for Qantas, you could work for other companies in the airline industry. And you have that ability to kind of test out maybe through internships or externships or co-ops, what would be the best opportunity for you. And then there's ways, opportunities, obviously through maybe scholarships or grants, or maybe you become is it a pilot's instructor, I suppose. That would be a way maybe to kind of subsidize the cost of what it would cost to get your degree. So again, just being a strong student and seeking some internship or some scholarship opportunities may be a good way to help pay for some of these flight hours and the rentals. And obviously the cost of college. College is expensive, but it's a great investment. Don't want you to be turned away by that. And it's going to be time intensive. So 4 years typically minimum, perhaps a little bit more depending on what you do. But again, knowing that that's an investment that if you're looking to be a commercial pilot down the road, that it's going to be worth it. And hopefully the college which you choose will help kind of direct you into the path of your choice. So I hope that helps kind of break up the difference between the private pilot license and an aviation degree, because we're really trying to focus on the aviation degree tonight. So like I had mentioned, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into each college. So we're going to start with Kent State University, and that's located in Kent, Ohio. That's in Northeast Ohio. And tonight we have Dr. Stephanie Fussell, and I'm the Aeronautics Program Coordinator and Assistant Professor. I'm going to read your bio real quick, Steph, and then I will ask a few questions of you. So Stephanie is an Assistant Professor and Aeronautics Program Coordinator with Kent State University's College of Aeronautics and Engineering. She teaches physiology and human factors of flight, crew resource management, human factors engineering, and professional development. Her research investigates extended reality technologies for aviation and aerospace training. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Happy to represent Northeast Ohio and just the North.
Yes, I know. We were just saying it's been so mild here in Northeast Ohio. It's like sweater weather. It's 55 degrees. And then we've got, Austin and Florida and Nick's out west in Arizona. And I'm sure it's still hotter than Haiti. So we're glad to be here and having a little bit more of a mild temperature finally. Do you mind giving us just a brief overview of Penn State's Aeronautics Engineering program? Like a
Yeah,
60 to 90-second commercial.
absolutely. So we actually have 6 aviation-centric programs, ranging from professional pilot to unmanned aircraft systems, air traffic control and airspace management, maintenance management, and just a general education in aeronautical studies. Of our students, I would say that the majority are professional in the professional pilot program. And I think that that kind of sets us apart as having not just a really strong flight program, but also a plethora of other options that our students can consider. On the engineering side, we do have things that range from aerospace and aeronautical systems technology through mechatronics and electrics, but I don't think that is as interested or of interest for our audience tonight. Sorry, I just get really nervous.
That's all right. No worries. Did a great job. What type of students are you looking to attract? Like we mentioned a little bit of the prerequisites, but like students that are strong in what do you think usually are successful at Kent State?
For the majority of our aviation programs, the students who succeed are the ones who are motivated and curious. We can help with math, we can help with physics, but a lot of our students are very driven. They want to innovate, they want to see themselves succeed in aviation, and they want to contribute to a stronger, safer future. And I think that's one of the most exciting things we have. We have so many students who are interdisciplinary, so they might major in UAS, but then they can have a flight minor or an ATC minor or a weather minor. So they get a very well-rounded and interesting education that lets them see a lot of different perspectives in aviation. So math, like I said, we can work with it, but if you're excited and motivated and want to see where this industry can take you, then that's definitely what we're looking for.
Okay. And I know that Kent State is a test optional university. Do you look for any like minimums as far as like a score or like, oh, you should have taken at least pre-calc or something like that? Like, would that stop someone from applying? Like you said, you can teach it to them, but it's kind of more open-ended as far as the application process.
So for most of our programs, the basic university minimums, it's some sort of GPA minimum. I'm sorry, I do not recall it offhand. I want to say it's maybe around 3. But
I think it's 3.0. I think it's 3.0 for undergrad, first year undergrad, and 2.75 for transfer.
Exactly. There we go. Thank you. So for the majority of our students, the 3.0 is all we're looking for. For the professional pilot major, you do have to take an aptitude test, a situational judgment test. So our professional pilot major, unfortunately, does have limited seats due to resources, but everyone who applies for the professional pilot does have a chance to get in. And if they do not get into the professional pilot, we give them options with our aeronautical studies program and tell them how to fly, and they can take all the same courses and just fly off campus.
Okay, that's great. How many students would you say are in your undergraduate, the 6 programs combined? How many would you say are part of that? And you can just ballpark it too.
Yeah, there's around 700 right now.
That's pretty good size.
Yeah, we're very proud. And honestly, what's funny is, I mentioned that we have 6 programs. Up until about last year, there was 2 programs, really one with a bunch of concentrations and minors that you would declare. We split them off into all the separate degree programs, which has really helped people understand, okay, it's not just about flight, it's about all these other areas and how they come together.
That's great. Yeah, and I think too, I mean, people just probably think, oh, I want to be a pilot. But then when they come to somewhere like Kent State and they have there's numerous programs that they could choose from, just having the exposure and the direction is just really helpful. Especially, I mean, when you're 17 and 18-year-old, you don't know what other options are available. So the ability to kind of get into that program and then explore, I'm sure is
Mhm.
very helpful.
Yeah, our students, and again, so some of these programs, they're technically brand new, but we do anticipate that in the upcoming years, the students will transfer between the degree programs as they take different intro courses, as they get involved with some of the projects on campus, some of the research we're doing. So our UAS program, for example, we're going to be flying over the campus soon. We've applied for waivers and we've been applying for all sorts of different opportunities to really push the UAS program on campus and within the college. So we do believe that, people who are like, oh, I want to fly planes will be like, oh, wait, drones are also super cool. Maybe I should check that out and start taking those classes as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard that the drone scene is really like blowing up and the colleges are actually, having drone majors or like
Yep.
drone centric majors.
Yep. And I know Embry-Riddle also has one. But that is definitely not the way of the future, but is a strong market to get into if you are interested in creating drones, flying drones, managing drones, maintaining drones. That's going to be a huge major in the next coming years. So we have all these things up in the air. How do we fix them? I don't know. I don't have that class yet, but I would say that for incoming students who want to excel in a new field, getting into urban air mobility, advanced air mobility, eVTOL, UAS, all these spaces are going to be blowing up and they're already starting to blow up, but they're going to be advancing rapidly. So that's a fun way to be on the cutting edge of an aviation industry that still um, incorporates weather, incorporates flight, incorporates management and operations.
That's amazing. And one of my final questions for you is going to be, can you give me like one unique part of your program or a unique trend? And I think you just nailed that. So I did not, I mean, I had heard of the drone, the up and coming, like that it was
Mhm.
going to be very popular, but I think you just nailed it, that it's really going to be like more than just a phase. It's going to be it could be an entire major for some students.
Oh yeah, and there's research opportunities. We're working with other companies and government agencies across Ohio to set up a corridor that runs from Northeast Ohio down to the Columbus area and then down to the Dayton area. So connecting the state literally in an air corridor that will be eVTOL and UAS centric. So that is something that I hope to see efficiently and safely done across the whole nation soon.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. So, all right. Well, we are going to move on. We're going to take our talents down to Boca Raton. For those of you that are LeBron fans in Northeast Ohio, I'm sure we're really sour about that reference I just made, but we're going to move on. Thank you again, Stephanie, to Austin, who is with us from Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting this, and to everyone watching, thank you for taking the time today to join us.
Yes, yes, we're really appreciative. I'll read your bio real fast and then probably ask you to do the same with the 60 to 90-second commercial. So Austin Irvine is an admissions counselor at Lynn University, located in beautiful Boca Raton, Florida, and he oversees the Midwest Territory. He is a native of Frisco, Texas, and attended Oklahoma State University. And he's worked at Lynn since April and is simultaneously working towards his master's in sport management at FAU. So again, we appreciate you being here. And so we've got Kent State, which is a large public university in Ohio. Now we're taking it to a small private liberal arts school. And we're really
Absolutely.
appreciative that we have, again, large public school, small private school, and an aeronautics-based school. So we're going to get the different lens from everybody. But tell us a little bit more about Lynn, real briefly, as well as your aviation programs.
Definitely, yeah. So as I mentioned, Lynn is located in Boca Raton, Florida. What is pretty unique about our professional pilot program specifically is that we operate out of Boca Raton Regional Airport, which is a private airport, um, just like less than 5 minutes from campus. So it's very convenient for our students. And what's really unique about that is we are not flying in a restricted airspace. So although we have local airports such as uh, Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale, our student planes are allowed to get up in the air without any restrictions. So that is one of our unique selling points that we have. We have three aviation type majors. The first being the professional pilot major, which is going to be the one where you're going to be in the plane, flying the plane. The second is our aviation operations major, which is more so hands-on, as you mentioned, like mechanical, as well as like flight air traffic control. And then our third is going to be aviation management. And this is one that's a little bit more, both aviation operations and aviation management are in our business school. However, aviation management will have a little bit more business twist to it. This is going to be a major that will help you go and work in an airline industry, in like a corporate office, helping plan travel specifically for the flights and things along that nature.
That's great. I love that that you have the two more business-centric models as well, because again, everybody thinks of just flying the airplane, but they need people that are able to coordinate departures and arrivals. And
Exactly.
that's especially after Southwest's debacle last year. I'm sure they really need some good people with,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yep.
strong backbone to take care of that. Would you say that your aviation programs are particularly difficult to get into? Are they competitive?
So I wouldn't necessarily say they're difficult to get into, but I would say the professional pilot program does have limited seating. So this year we kind of capped it around 40 students. So it is somewhat limited in terms of the spots we have. And we do that simply because one, we want to make sure all of our students who are in the program are getting on the plane and we're not overpacking that program. So it's then a competition of who can get on and who's not. Um, so this allows ample time for all of our students to get plenty of flight time and flight hours throughout the week. Um, and then our aviation operations and management programs, those are not capped. So those are just as easy to get into as any of our other programs. And we're not super selective in terms of like test scores, things like that. We are test optional. Um, so there's definitely lots of options there.
Okay. I actually had a chat or someone had dropped it in the Q&A and it was a good question because it kind of goes back to what you said about capping it at 40. Is it basically a first come, first serve situation, or is there like a deadline and then after that it's rolling? Like, what would you say?
No, that's a very good question. So it is a first come, first serve basis, and we go off of that based on deposit. So once you apply, get admitted, you'll have the option to deposit. It will be refundable up to May 1st of 2025. Once you deposit, you are then selecting your seat into that program. So
Okay.
I always advise with families and students that I meet with, if you are interested, absolutely go ahead and apply. Once you hear back from us, if you're accepted, you'll then have the opportunity to submit a deposit, which is $500. As I mentioned, it is refundable up to May 1st, 2025. And it was not an additional $500. It will come out of your first bill on campus. And then that is how we'll go off of the seating.
Okay. Would you say for your aviation majors that it's typical for students to graduate within 4 years? Or do you find that, the private pilot license or the professional flight degree is more like 4.5, 5? Would you say
Yeah,
people
so
get on time?
no, yeah. So for almost all of our students will graduate within 4 years. The question will be how close they'll be to commercial piloting. So there's a specific amount of hours that they have to have in order to fly commercially for American Airlines, Delta, those things. We have options here. We expect that once you graduate, you'll be around 800 hours total over those 4 years. So the 800 and 900, so you'll have a little over 300 hours that you'll still need to complete. Most of our students will become a flight instructor here, which is a paid position. And you're able to also gain those hours while being an instructor on the flights. For
That's
the
great.
aviation operation and management majors, you can actually complete those in 3 years through our accelerated program. And then if you're interested, you could do a master's degree, 1 year master's degree, and finish in 4 years with a master's degree. So there's lots of options there.
Wow, that's great. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
All right, and then my last question for you will be, so you mentioned that you have the capabilities of going to the Boca Raton Regional Airport, but then also being very close to Fort Lauderdale, and I think you said West Palm was the
Yes.
other like
Yep.
major airport. Do you find that you're able to, like, your students have internships at these airports and with these airlines? I mean, I'm sure that's a huge advantage to be able to disperse students between 3 airports.
Yes. Oh, it is a huge advantage. And then we obviously have Miami International, which is a little bit more south, but it's about an hour drive to get there. So we have 3 large international airports within a drive for us. And we actually this past year we've had multiple students intern at West Palm, Palm Beach International Airport. As well as many of the airlines. We've had interns go to Dallas for American Airlines and Southwest, up to Atlanta, and interning at their airport as well as with Delta. So, yeah, it's definitely a big plus for sure.
That's great. Well, thank you. I loved hearing that you had
Absolutely.
just, some of the more business-centric majors. I think that's really important to kind of show that that's an avenue for students that they could pursue if they don't want to be a professional pilot. So thank you so much.
Certainly, yes. Yeah, of course.
All right. Last but certainly not least, we're going to take it west. And we are going to speak with Nick Savely, who is the Assistant Director of Admission at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University at the Prescott, Arizona location. So thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
yeah, of course.
I'm going to read your
So,
bio for you. Do you want me to read your bio for you real fast?
oh yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry. I'll do that and then I'll have you launch into your 60-second commercial.
All right.
Nick is a 2023 alumnus of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University at the Prescott campus, and he graduated with a degree in aeronautical science and a minor in aviation safety. He has a commercial single engine certificate with an instrument rating and has worked as an admissions representative at ERAU since the end of 2023. All
Cool.
right, so tell us all about Embry-Riddle. I feel like, this is probably the one that, because for me personally, I'm working with students all the time and we're, looking at more traditional paths, liberal arts colleges, state colleges, public colleges, but this is definitely a niche. So I want to hear a little bit about what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, definitely. Embry-Riddle together is a total of 3 different campuses. So we have my location that I represent, and I'm from the Prescott, Arizona location up here in northern Arizona. So we do get some snow, at least during our winter time. Not right now. I can confirm it's still really hot. And then we, of course, have our location in Daytona Beach, Florida. So, of course, you get those nice palm trees and beaches, and it's nice weather year round. And then we have our online worldwide program. So if you are interested in going online, doing your schooling through there, that is a great avenue. If you are, wanting to go into the workforce a little sooner, and you still want to be able to get a degree, that is a great way there. But both campuses have residential campuses, Prescott and Daytona, have flight programs that at the same time you are getting all of your flight certificates, you are also getting a 4-year bachelor's degree. We also have other degrees in uncrewed air systems, meteorology, air traffic management, aviation business. We kind of have a whole spectrum of wherever you want to go in the aviation industry, particularly with our Daytona Beach campus. If you are interested in becoming a aircraft mechanic, getting your airframe and power plant certificates, A&P. The Daytona Beach campus has that option. So if you're interested in mechanic, unfortunately, we don't have our program out here. Maybe in the future we'll get one, but the Daytona Beach campus would be your avenue there. And yeah, so students come here, we're also not just a flight program. If students want to come here, become an aerospace engineer and get a minor in flight or a minor in aviation business, they can definitely do that. I have had multiple students in my office come here and say, I want to be an astronaut. How do I do that? And I tell them, you're in the right place. I think we have around 7 alumni that have become astronauts around there. So students are able to do their engineering degrees, but then also become a pilot and go through the pilot program to satisfy that requirement. I know a personal friend of mine who's my roommate. One of his students that he was instructing wants to become a test pilot, and so she was going the aerospace engineering route with a minor in flight training. So there's a lot of different ways that you can come here, become a pilot, and still have a great education, and not just come to become a pilot. Like I did my minor in aviation safety. So if I ever, God forbid anything happens, I still have that to fall back on. And it's a great resource for me to be able to use. Plus, everyone in the aviation industry loves safety. And so it's also a really good resume builder to have that. And then we do also have a meteorology program. So if you are interested in, going the meteorology route, we are an aviation specific school, I will say that. However, it is its own standalone meteorology program. It just works hand in hand with whatever you're doing as a pilot and with the aviation industry. As a lot of what the aviation industry does, most of our decisions get made based off of weather. Like just every day I wake up just instinctually. I might not even be flying that day, but I'll be checking the weather program or weather. So, we really like to also kind of emphasize we are also just more than just a flight school. We are so much more, and we're almost a polytechnic university in that case. So,
okay, that's great. I love the astronaut connection too. Again, we've talked about, more of like the aeronautical engineering at Kent. We've talked now a little bit about the business, and now we've got becoming an astronaut or, going to the Daytona campus to do more technical things, which is really neat. Can you tell me a little bit about your application process? Because I mean, typically I'm working with the Common App and, we're sending transcripts and whatnot. How, maybe if it's that's the same, or how does that differ?
yeah, so we are a little uncommon in this regard that we have to use our own, you have to go through our website to submit the application. So once you go online, you submit the application from there. Once it's finished, you can go ahead and send us all of your documents either via email, or if your school uses a third-party transcript service like Parchment, then they can get those documents submitted to us that way. I will say, as a just general disclaimer, you can only apply to one campus at a time. So if Daytona Beach is your school of choice, I would recommend applying to them, since their flight program and their aerospace engineering program both fill up, and usually fill up around November, December. So if that is the location of choice, I would encourage you to apply there as soon as you can. The fall 25 application is currently open for us. So if that is the destination that you want to end up at, I recommend applying to them first. And then if you get accepted, great. If you get accepted to one campus, for example, you apply here at Prescott, but you're like, actually, I want to switch to Daytona, or vice versa. It's just a pretty simple phone call that you have to make, or an email, and we can switch your application from one campus to the other. So it's pretty nice in that regard. There's no other separate application, but you can only submit one application to each campus.
Okay,
Or you can have one active at a time.
that makes sense. Would you say, I mean, it sounds like would you say that the Daytona campus is more, I want to say desirable, but more people try to fill that campus before the Prescott campus gets filled?
Yeah. Funny, being from the Prescott campus, a lot of people don't know that we actually have a campus in Arizona. And so more often than not, when someone says, oh, Embry-Riddle, what first comes into people's minds is Daytona Beach. They're also our larger campus. Right
Okay.
now, they have around 7,000 students roughly, where we have around 3,200. So we are a slightly smaller campus, and usually when someone says Embry-Riddle, they usually associate that with the Daytona Beach campus. There's nothing wrong with either campus. Both are great in terms of education and flight training. It's just more people like Florida. So.
Just funny because when I was doing the research on who we wanted to ask to do this, I didn't know that there was a Florida campus. I immediately went right to Arizona. So I guess I'm breaking the mold on that one.
Yeah.
Would you say that the admission is pretty competitive?
Definitely at the Daytona Beach campus. They, like I said, they hit a cap on their program much sooner than I. I don't think we have determined a cap yet. There is talks that we might. However, once you apply and get accepted into the aeronautical science program, which is a professional pilot program, there is no separate application from there. So once you get accepted there, you're in, you're set. You just have to submit that tuition deposit to secure your spot. And as long as you are, of course, meeting our requirements and you are showing that at least your coursework in high school, that you're showing that you are likely to succeed here at Embry-Riddle. We are a little bit more rigorous institution. So we are looking at more like, honors classes, AP classes. If they don't have those kind of classes, that's all right. We'll still look at the student there. And we also only look at the weighted GPA, since a vast majority of high schools are starting to do that now. And, we want to have the student be able to, have the best opportunity to be able to get into Embry-Riddle. So.
Do you require a standardized test?
We do not. We are test optional. So if, like for myself, perfect example, myself. So when I applied way back long ago, gosh, maybe it's not that far. But anyways, when I applied, I had a 3.7 weighted GPA in high school, and I got a 1060 on the SAT. Not the greatest score in the world. So I chose not to submit my test score, and because I didn't feel like it accurately represented myself as a student. And so I was still able to get accepted just based off of my GPA. So we are definitely test optional, and that's something that I talk to my students in my office all the time about.
Okay. So knowing that your focus obviously is aeronautics, is there an opportunity to take classes outside of aeronautics at Embry-Riddle? I mean, is there maybe like language or history or social sciences, or is it just straight 4 years, maybe more, of just math and science?
Yeah, it is. You definitely have the general education classes built into it. I will say we are definitely trending more towards having a mix of all of your upper level classes. So, for example, my freshman year, I took a flight physiology class my freshman year. That was pretty cool. It's basically how the body interacts with G forces. And funny enough, we are actually not meant to fly in planes. Long story short of that, you can take history classes. Like I took a modern European history. I was one of 5 students in that class. Not super popular. I was also able to take a Marvel film appreciation class, which is pretty cool. For my homework, I got to watch all 26 Marvel movies. So if that interests you and you still have an elective class to take, you could certainly take one of those classes. You're definitely not locked in to your specific degree program. However, if you wanted to take a minor that's like a business class, or a business minor that's not directly associated with aviation, you can definitely go that route as well.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, I think that's all I really had. You all did a wonderful job giving the details about your programs, what makes it very special, and all the different options that are available. So I appreciate that. All right, so I have one question for each presenter, and they know this question, so hopefully they're ready to go. But I wanted to ask Stephanie to start. How do you recommend for students that are coming into Kent State's aeronautical engineering program, how are they going to discern, or how should they discern what's the right path for them? Because it sounds like they have a lot of options.
Get out there and explore. So we have several partnerships, for example, with high schools in the area where students can take classes ahead of time and find out, if aviation is something that they're interested in. We also have lots of outreach programs, lots of different camps that people can come to, students can come to of all ages, different events that we host on campus. So I'd say that would be the first step. Just get out there and explore. And then once you get into your college, get involved, try new things, take the intro courses for other programs if it fits into your roadmaps, get involved with student activities and different clubs, and just figure out, like, is this something that I want? Or maybe it's something different that I want. To Nick's point, you never know if you're a pilot, if you're going to lose your medical, which can Not to be drastic, but that can really change your career in a questionable way. So having backup options like weather or UAS or business or operations or management, even just by having a minor or being involved in a professional organization, can set you further ahead than someone who only went the flight route with no alternatives.
That's a great point. I love what you just said about for high school students to go to the camps or go to on-campus events. And typically those types of things are free. Maybe not a camp, but like if Kent State was hosting some sort of like a shadow day or an exposure type event,
Yep.
definitely taking advantage of those. And I love the thought of having a backup because you just never know.
Yeah, we have tons of internships and opportunities to figure out, so for example, when I was in high school, I was interested in air traffic control. And this is way back in the day when I actually got to just go up and hang out in a control tower and quickly realized it was not what I wanted. So even just having that 1 day opportunity to shadow someone on the job, I was like, maybe I try another path. But exploring those internships, those co-ops, we do have so many flight pathway programs. So our students can sign up with Delta, sign up with Southwest before they've even graduated. We have numerous airports in our area. Our airport is actually the busiest in Northeast Ohio, busier even traffic-wise than Cleveland. But we have strong associations with Cleveland, Canton, Akron, Canal Fulton. So we have students who are taking internships at local airports all the time.
That's great. Thank you. All right, our next question. I am going to toss this over to Nick. For a high school student, what do you believe are great ways to stand out as an applicant? And then the second part of that is when you're at Embry-Riddle or another college, what are great ways to stand out as a student?
Yeah, definitely. So when I'm looking at a student, reviewing them for an application, definitely, seeing them taking STEM classes, like if they're, for example, an interest in an engineering here, if they took a coding class or they're doing robotics in high school, that definitely looks good. As you kind of, if you're doing that in high school, you probably are more or less going to want to do that here at Embry-Riddle, or regardless of what college you go to. So for at least the pilots, if you are part of EAA, AOPA, any other pilot association, that's Aircraft Owners Pilots Association, and then Experimental Aircraft Association. If you are working on getting your private pilot's license, you took a discovery flight and you really loved it. You fell in love with, you got the aviation bug, like many of us have gotten. For example, I volunteered at an aviation museum all throughout high school. So I got in contact with some Embry-Riddle alumni that way, and other pilots and retired airline captains, and they're regaling me of their glory days. So definitely putting yourself out there, getting yourself involved with the aviation community or whatever community you're going to be involved in definitely helps. It's not required as a requirement here at Embry-Riddle, but it definitely will elevate your application. And then while you're a student here, just get involved on campus, put yourself out there, go become a tutor if you want. For myself, believe it or not, I was fairly introverted when I got to college. So by putting myself out there, going to different clubs and other organizations, we have everything from like a sweater vest club all the way up to like a model rocketry club. Well, I wouldn't say model rocketry because they broke the world record for that, launching a rocket up to 40,000 feet. So regardless of kind of what your niche is on campus, get yourself out there. We are more than just a pilot school, but everyone on campus will definitely have an opinion on whether or not you like Boeing or Airbus. Maybe those opinions have changed as of recent events, but yeah, that's kind of how you can stand out.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, very much like what Stephanie said as well. Just getting involved is such a huge piece of not only your discernment, but having backups. And, if this doesn't work out, then I have this to depend on, and making yourself probably more attractive when you are applying for jobs post-graduation. You've been a part of multiple organizations, you've had leadership roles, you've taken interest in things that might be a little bit off the cuff or, outside of the box. So those are really good tips. Thank you. All right, Austin. So the last one, we talked about how aviation can be a very expensive degree. It can be very expensive to get your hours accounted for. You mentioned that, you know, when students leave Lynn, they still have 300 hours remaining, which are expensive. So what are ways that you feel that you can make an education or an aviation degree more affordable?
Certainly. And as you mentioned, there's no doubt the cost of a college education is very expensive. In addition to that, the professional pilot is a whole nother cost. So it's definitely a very good question that a lot of families and students have. And at Lynn, we do our best to try to make it an affordable option for all of our students. So we do offer merit scholarships for all of our students here at Lynn. They range from $10,000 up to $22,000, and they will be based off of your cumulative weighted high school GPA. So that's one way that we kind of assist our students in terms of making their education a little bit more affordable. Another way that our students, specifically in the professional pilot program, a lot of them will become flight instructors while they're students. So they can almost twice as fast break in their hours while also getting paid for it. So that is a huge plus that our students that I would advise you take advantage of if you can. And for the most part, you know, I just like to put it out there. If you can get your professional pilot's license beforehand, that will save you a lot of time and money while you're here at the university, because you'll already be coming in with that. So that is something that I like to just mention for a good way for one to save a lot of time, and two, it'll help you save a lot of costs as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. I want to keep this under an hour. So I have one more slide that I think we can hit if we did, you know, a quick 60 seconds. If you don't have one, that's fine. You can pass. But if you could each give me just one quick success story. So it could be in any aviation field. Steph, I'll start with you. If you have a story to share, and again, if you want to pass, that's fine too.
No, definitely. So our aviation program has been around for, I want to say over 50 years at this point. I should know this offhand, and I don't, unfortunately. But back in 98, we had a student named Corey graduate, and he founded a company called SkyQuest, which is a charter and business travel operations company located here in the Cleveland area. So he's the president of that company, and he has 75 pilots who work for him, and 38 of them are from Kent State. So he has been making waves in our local aviation area. He is a huge part of our college, and he helps keep that mission and legacy alive, and gives pilots a job as soon as he can to help also just our own pipeline for success with our students.
That's awesome. Flash is looking out for fellow Flashes.
Exactly.
That's awesome. All right, Nick, who do you have for your success story?
Maybe not anyone in particular, but we like to say maybe 1 in every 5 airline pilots is an Embry-Riddle alumni. You have a huge outreach potential between all the different alumni across the world. And in fact, I ran into a former flight instructor of mine at one of my career fairs. So they're now at the airlines, having left Embry-Riddle, going there. We have, in fact, there's a FBO out of Bakersfield, California, and he now owns a fleet of private jet aircrafts, and he's kind of doing similar to what Stephanie was saying, is hiring Embry-Riddle students looking to hire us. And then I also have a personal friend of mine that graduated from our cybersecurity program, and she's making 6 figures at Blue Cross Blue Shield working for them. So, you know, I've got a lot of different stories, so I didn't want to say anyone in particular, but just a lot of my friends are doing a lot of cool things. So
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you.
yeah.
All right, Austin, last but not least.
Awesome. So yeah, I do have a pretty interesting story. So about a week ago, we met with our College of Aeronautics department to kind of go through over what their goals and things were looking like for the upcoming year. And one of the questions we asked is what cool stories or something unique that has happened to one of the students. And we have a Goodyear blimp down here in Miami, and they had an opening for it, and our dean had connected a bunch of our students to interview and apply for it. Our students made it all the way through. Their two finalists for it were both Lynn students, and the people who run the blimp loved both students so much that they ended up hiring both of them instead of choosing one. So now we have two full-time students who are flying the Goodyear blimp down in Miami. It's pretty cool because I think there's only 10 or so of them still up and running. So that was a pretty unique story. I enjoyed hearing about that one.
That is, and it ties right back to Northeast Ohio.
Yep,
It's from Akron, so it's really neat.
that's it.
Very cool. All right, I am actually going to stop screen sharing because I have a few questions, and again, I want to be mindful of time, so I'm going to check those out. Okay, well, someone wants a copy of the presentation, so yeah, I can do that, no problem. What are the typical costs for a private pilot license versus general tuition? So does anybody want to answer just what the typical cost of a professional pilot's license is? Take a guess. We could always get back to this too if you're like, I'm not really sure.
I'd have to look. However, that being said, many colleges, I know mine does, and I'm pretty sure I've seen it at Embry-Riddle, will post flight fees on their website so that you can get an idea of what the cost per certificate and rating will be for average hours. I would say if there is a campus you are specifically looking at, just search around a little bit or reach around to the flight operations coordinator or dean or whoever it is and ask for those fees so that you can plan over that. There are also some courses that have specific fees for lab fees, depending on which college and program you're in. So for example, our flight students have, it's pretty much all laid out and it's very clear what it is. For all the other students, it's rolled into the program because the one-offs of paying for a lab doesn't make sense. So it's just rolled into the program and it's part of the tuition that you can expect.
Okay. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, when I was doing some research as well, it looked like there was, it was a part of the tuition. And there were some that were like the flat tuition rate plus fees for extra hours or whatnot. So I'm sure it is program specific, and just doing a little bit of due diligence and digging to see what exactly that would entail is a good move. All right, our next question was that my son wants to be a military jet pilot. Is going to the Air Force Academy the only way to go, or are there other options? So I'm assuming if you were to attend Kent State or Lynn or Embry-Riddle, can you then work for the military, or do you have to be trained through a military avenue?
Yeah, I can answer this one. We do have both Air Force ROTC and Army ROTC. Our Daytona Beach campus has Navy ROTC if you're interested in the movie Top Gun, you want to become Tom Cruise. That is a great avenue there. I will say, at least with the Air Force ROTC, our ROTC cadets are the second most picked for pilot slots in all of the ROTC programs, second to the Air Force Academy. I have multiple friends of mine or other students that worked up front here in our office that are going and becoming pilots. And in fact, one that just graduated this last semester actually is going to NJEP training. So that is training, like a higher level of training than just regular traditional like entry level pilot into the Air Force. That's with like NATO. That's with like all the other cream of the crop, like from all across the country and world. So that is based in Texas, I believe. So we are definitely a great way and option that if you want to become, I would recommend, regardless of where you go, ROTC is definitely going to be another second best option. So I know it is fairly difficult to get into the Air Force Academy. And if you do not get in, definitely try reaching out to the Air Force ROTC detachment at your respective college that you're looking at.
Austin or Stephanie, do either of you have Air Force ROTC?
We do have ROTCs across the campus, and kind of to what Nick was just saying, it's definitely a great way to get that little bit of a head start. I wouldn't say it's strictly necessary. So I just today learned that one of our students who wanted to be a Navy pilot got a Navy pilot slot when she graduates. So she wasn't in an ROTC, but she really put herself out there and pushed really hard to make herself stand out as an applicant. And she does fly off campus. So I would say that probably the academy is not the only way to go. It's definitely a very good way to go. No matter how you cut it, being a fighter jet pilot is competitive. So there are options. It just really depends on what's the best option for your student. Your son is what the person
Yep,
said.
yep, it was Sun. Okay, I have another question. I know that there are competitive colleges that have strong courses in aviation for the state of Ohio, but I am afraid that I won't be able to figure out which one to choose. How could I find the best option? I think, I mean, and maybe Steph can speak a little bit to this being in Ohio, and I'm sure that maybe discerning which aviation program, depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for professional flight or if you're looking for something that's more business related or air traffic control, that would probably be like the way to discern which aviation program in Ohio would be for you. But from an Estrella standpoint, I would say, I mean, we're really big on best fit schools for our students. So what's affordable for me? Where am I admissible? Is this a good social fit for me? Am I looking for a larger school? Am I looking for a big public state school? Do I want Big Ten football on the weekends? Do I want to be closer to home? So I think, once you kind of can discern what part of an aviation program you're looking to pursue, just looking at more of like the social, financial, academic fits and seeing, what could be a good option there. But I'm sure you could even just Google, in Ohio, Ohio aviation college programs and seeing what comes up. All right, and our last question, because I want to be cognizant of time, I told you guys you'd be done by 8 o'clock. This is for Nick. It says, if you are on the fence between both Embry-Riddle campuses, it sounds like a student should choose Daytona. But then if they change their minds, should they switch to Prescott? So I think you kind of covered this a little
Yeah.
bit. Okay.
Yeah, it's if you're on the fence, both are great campuses. It's just really whether or not you want palm trees and beaches or mountains, snow, and cactus. That's kind of like how I break it down to my students whenever I'm talking to them. And yeah, like to kind of your point, if you're on the fence, and you don't really know which one you want to go to, yeah, the aeronautical science program is a little bit more competitive. And if you don't end up hearing back from them and they're like, actually, sorry, we capped the program, we're not able to make an admissions decision because we don't have the space, then what we'll do is us in Prescott, we'll reach out to you and say, hey, are you interested in coming to the Prescott campus? And then we'll make sure we get that application switched over and then get you a decision. So
Great. Thank you so much. Well, that is all of the questions that we have. So thank you so much for everybody's contributions, your insight. It was great to hear about all of the wonderful programs that you are a part of in the respective colleges. And again, thank you for being here and taking the time, and to all of the people that jumped on tonight. We really appreciate you as well. If the presenters don't mind, I will, when I share this recording, so anybody who registered, even if you didn't attend live tonight, you'll get a copy of the recording. And if it's okay with you all, do you mind if I put your contact information with the recording? So if someone has an additional question, they can reach out. Awesome. All right, everyone. Thank you again so much for being here, and best of luck as you're navigating this path, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.